All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to discuss managed detection and response in depth. Now for introductions. I'm Megan Reed, VP of Marketing at NetGain Technologies, and joining me today is Scott Logan, Director of Security at NetGain, and Tim Smoot, Senior Systems Engineer at Arctic Wolf Networks. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you, Megan, for having us.
Thank you.
Collectively, sure, yeah, collectively, these gentlemen have over 60 years of IT experience, and a majority of those years are in the security space. So again, ask those questions. They're the best ones to answer it for you. To kick us off quickly, what I'd like to do is throw up a quick polling question. We want to know how technical you want us to get today. We have a wide variety of audience here, so we want to keep the conversation very business-like, high level. We can get more technical if we need to. So let us know what you are feeling and what you would prefer in today's webinar. I'm going to give just another couple of seconds as we get those results in, and then I'm going to share them with everybody. All right. Looks like a pretty good mix of somewhat technical and technical. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and share the results. It looks like 56% want somewhat technical and 30% technical. So we'll keep it on the lighter side a little bit today. But again, I want to reinforce that questions are encouraged. If you feel like we're too technical, tell us. If you feel like we're too high level, ask us a more technical question. We might even send a nice thank you gift for your participation today. All right, so let's kick it off. Now I want to start with the current threat landscape. I'm sure everyone's heard of the recent Garmin ransomware attack or the one that happened in our own backyard with Jack Daniels. So let's talk about the primary threats small and medium businesses face today. Tim, will you kick us off?
Sure enough. Feeding off of those two that you mentioned there, obviously ransomware is the one that comes right to the front of most folks' minds in today's world. And truthfully, it's the one that seems to introduce as much pain and suffering as possible, whether it's monetarily. It points out a lot of the preparation side of things like business continuity and things of that nature when we start talking about backups and storage, replication, and any number of different aspects of your overall infrastructure. So ransomware is definitely the one that comes to mind a lot. The tried and true one that's probably as frequent, if not more frequent than ransomware, maybe doesn't get quite as much press, is phishing. And phishing is the tried and true method that folks have leveraged for many years from the security side, or from the hacking side, I guess. And the security folks have been doing things to thwart, which would be things like dual factor authentication and other methodologies to try to limit that. However, spear phishing has evolved, as you would expect, as has malware. So now phishing itself has evolved into things like spear phishing and other different phishing methodologies. And those typically integrate other old school methodologies of hacking, like social engineering and things of that nature. So a lot of the nefarious actors out there are going out and they're leveraging tools that folks forget about, right? They're just doing a little bit of research on LinkedIn or Facebook or any other social media platform to get an understanding of, what type of user they're targeting, where that user works, what department they work in. All of these pieces put together help them build that social engineering background for that phishing attack, which elevates the ability or the probability of it being successful. So those two are probably the biggest ones. Now, we don't want to kind of brush over the fact that good old-fashioned vulnerabilities are still out there. And some of the ones on that side of the coin are definitely leveraged very highly in the IoT space and the point of sale space. I know two of the biggest hacks that we've ever heard of with Marriott and with Target. Both of those were POS type hacks. So we want to make sure when we're thinking about threats that we don't look specifically at just the things that we think about on a day-to-day basis. We want to think about our entire infrastructure and the pieces and parts that comprise it, and understand that all of that is a possible threat vector.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Tim. You really kind of set the whole idea or landscape of a threat. And, you know, I do a lot of webinars. I do a lot of public speakings and talking in security, and I talk a lot about the current cyber threat landscape that's out there. You know, CEO fraud, form jacking, crypto jacking, like ransomware, botnet attacks. They're a constant influence into infrastructures and a level of attack. And most of them, I'd say 90% of it, is introduced through user interface. The users make the mistake on the inside of the network and create the infection, or allow the infection to be transmitted throughout the infrastructure. Yeah, sure, the vulnerability stuff is there, and it's processed as well in attack. Just recently, there was a lot of vulnerability associated to port 3389 being open on the outside. That was a vector of attack that a lot of script kiddies were out there looking for, and when it found it, it would brute force its way into the network and then generate its infection and spread. The whole idea behind this threat landscaping is, whether it's a vulnerability that exists in the infrastructure or whether it's a user influenced vulnerability, it still requires a great deal of monitoring and understanding of what's happening in your network. You can't be completely preventive. You just have to be aware. And so a lot of our controls associated to managed detection response is associated to awareness. And that's where this threat landscaping becomes something that's manageable.
Yeah, and definitely, we want to bring to the front of people's minds the fact that, it's not always someone doing something wrong. If you're running a business, it's highly likely that you have to use email, you have to surf the web, whether that's communicating with your customers, your partners, or your vendors. And these folks that are nefarious actors, they know that that's a requirement, and they're going to leverage that. So being aware, to your point, Scott, and knowing what to look for and how to look for it is our way of preventing that business requirement from also being an open door for being hacked.
Yeah, and as you were talking through that, we did get a question in that said Bitcoin ? How was that achieved? Are there not enough safeguards to prevent that from occurring? Tim, I think that might have been something that you had mentioned and touched on. Will you take that question?
Yeah, that monitoring side of the coin that Scott said is probably the biggest way to prevent or to thwart people trying to leverage your internal infrastructure for Bitcoin mining. When we're talking about leveraging Bitcoin as a way of purchasing things or things of that nature, the truth is that it is legal. There's nothing illegal about it. But at the same time, because it's untraceable, which isn't quite as untraceable now as people think it used to be, because it's untraceable, the bad guys leverage it for payment services and things of that nature after they've gotten someone with malware or ransomware, things of that nature. So there definitely are tools and methodologies to monitor your infrastructure to make sure your folks aren't leveraging, or you don't have an infection from a malware standpoint that allows outsiders to create a botnet on your internal infrastructure to do Bitcoin mining. And those are part of the MDR side of the coin that Scott mentioned with respect to monitoring. The truth is not a lot of that happens anymore. And the truth is that so much Bitcoin has been mined already that it's very, very hard to find new ones. So they've moved on to other types of digital currency, and that truly has picked up as well. So yeah, that monitoring side is the best way to be aware of that.
Perfect. And quickly, really quick before we go on, Jack Daniels, can you talk to that a little bit?
Actually, I haven't done a lot of research. They haven't given us a whole lot of pieces and parts of what actually happened there. So I would love to give the details, and we'll certainly make sure we put that together once they've released the majority of the details. Right now, it's very high level. They have been breached. We don't know to what extent, but it definitely made the press, which I'm sure they weren't overly excited about, which no one is, but it
Sure.
is something that happens.
Hopefully it just affected the data and not the product line.
Exactly. Well, cool. Let's move on. With the increasing threats, obviously there's increasing challenges with that. I want to kind of transition into the fundamental security challenges. So what challenges are businesses faced with today in regards to security? Scott, you want to start us off?
Every single device in your network has the capability of creating logs about what's happening within that device, who's logging into it, what it's doing, what it's moving in and out of the network. That is a lot of information, and it creates a ton of noise in your environment. And to actually be able to digest all of the information that's coming from these assets, that's providing information that can help you be possibly effective in managing threat, creates a great deal of management, a great deal of time, and a great deal of experience and expertise to be able to process that information. The amount of information that's out there is enormous, and to be able to filter it down and digest it and then create reasonable and effective results from the information that's provided is certainly an enormous challenge that businesses have.
No doubt about it. I mean, think about the requirement there when you're trying to leverage a ton of different information as actionable data. You don't want to get caught in that mire of, I'm going to reduce what I have to go through so that I can make it through quicker. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to the amount of information. And that dovetails into that skills side of the coin as well, is that we need to understand that as the folks that are responsible for making it through that information, those people have to have the time to do it. They need the education, and they need the resources to be able to research and understand what they're seeing. So when we think about security skills shortages and the amount of information that we're getting, we want to make sure that we're not caught up in just the economics of it. It's more about the brute strength that is required, and sometimes strength isn't about your muscles. It's about your knowledge, and in this case, it's exactly the point. We don't want to limit the amount of time and talent that we have that's reviewing those logs, but we also don't want to limit the amount of the logs that we're looking through, because each time we limit those two pieces, we create chinks in our armor. So information is power. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So we need to make sure that we leverage that information, and we bring in the resources and the assets that we need in order to make it through that information and create actionable data out of it without inducing additional strain on our existing staff. And also understanding that sometimes the staff that we have is already overloaded doing other things, and recognizing also the fact that taking an IT person and creating them or expecting them to become a security person as well is really two different mindsets. It's very, very difficult for an IT person to become a security person, or vice versa. So it's a different skill set, and we need to recognize that.
Yeah, and I see that all the time, Tim. I see the IT guy trying to wear that security hat, and it's really unfortunate for them because they're not trained. They're not specialists in that arena. They don't have the information that they need to process the information effectively to make the business better and more secure. And that's just an unfortunate situation. And a lot of the small businesses just simply don't have the budget to be able to bring on a full-time security guy. Yeah, there's probably enough work to do and all this log management to bring in a full-time guy, but certainly that's budget impacting. And a lot of small businesses can't afford to do that. And so having the availability of obtaining a resource through a SOC as a service type of program that effectively brings you that security specialist from the outside in, it can be an effective approach for small businesses. And one of the other problems that small businesses have is their location, that they probably just can't find the specialists in their area to help assist them. So having, once again, a solution that can present a specialist to provide me my understanding externally can be very beneficial and effective for my organization.
Yeah, and we can't brush over the reality of that cost of the response time as well. We've touched on it with the people, and we touched on it with the noise side of the coin and the amount of information you're processing. At the end of the day, that cost of response time is multifaceted. It certainly costs the business. If we talk about things like ransomware, you have to evaluate whether you're going to make that Bitcoin payment in order to be able to bring your business back up much quicker. And hopefully it does turn out the way it's supposed to, although there are some folks out there that are saying that they'll give you the encryption key and they actually aren't. They're just destroying your data and getting paid at the same time. But the reality is that response time cost is, excuse me, very high outside of your four walls. And this is something that I like to bring up a lot to help people, give a little bit more respect to the cost of these breaches and these kind of issues, because it doesn't always just cost the business money. Sometimes it costs the business reputation, and that reputation can impact, your customers, obviously, because of downtime or because of, somebody like Jack Daniels, someone knows that you've been hacked now. Now, whether that changes their opinion of your whiskey or not, I doubt. But the point being, in another industry, it could have a huge impact on your customer base, your partners, your vendors. Some of the partnerships that you have compliance requirements, and their ability to do their business is based on a compliance requirement with the vendors and customers and partners that they have. So if you get breached, then now that impacts your relationship with them, and they may have to discontinue that relationship because of that breach. So there's a lot more that goes along with it than just bringing the data back and getting the business back up and running.
Yep, that's very true. And talking about a statistic that I saw the other day, that companies that contained a breach in less than 200 days saved over 1.12 million. I mean, time is money, but that doesn't even take into account how long it takes to get back online with all the files that you need in order to be successful and all of that. So yeah, let's flip gears over here and see, get into the meat of the conversation, and talk about managed detection and response in detail. So I know, gentlemen, we've spoken many times about the topic, and it can easily be confused with other tools on the market. So let's jump into quickly, what is MDR exactly, and what is MDR not? Tim, will you kick us off?
Yeah, the easiest part of that for me, and in some of the space, not all of the space, is to break the acronym down to its actual words, right? So managed detection and response is what MDR stands for. So the managed part of it is more about the pieces and the parts, right? It's more about bringing all of those elements that we spoke of before, the logs, the people, the process, the SIM, all of those pieces brought together as one platform to be the element and the capability to detect and properly remediate issues that have made it inside. The reality is that a managed detection and response, just off the shelf, in most cases, folks look at it as a reactive tool, right? It's more of the thought process of, hey, this is the tool I have in place to detect things that have made it around the tools and the process and the firewalls and all the rest of the things that I have constructed to protect myself that I know of. This is the tool that's in place to detect those, or the new ones that no one's heard about, and be able to manage those indicators of compromise, another acronym, IOC, in order to recognize something that doesn't look right, and then be able to leverage that information that Scott was referring to earlier with the logs, and tie those pieces and parts together to do a proper investigation to see if it truly is something that I need to react to. So managed detection and response, again, more of a reactive tool. Managed risk would be the proactive tool. And if you go with a service like Arctic Wolf, with those professionals and the 24/7 monitoring, now it can be an active tool as well. Again, it's still technically reactive, because of the fact that there has to be indicators of compromise before you actually detect something. But at the end of the day, adding that active element on top of it makes it even more efficient and takes your, to Megan's point about the response time, takes that from being days, weeks, even a month, down to minutes. And that saves a lot of time, saves a lot of effort, and certainly can save a lot of money. MDR is also not EDR, endpoint detection and response. Again, if we take that acronym and break it back out to the words, then we know that endpoint detection and response is more focused to your agent-based endpoints. So your Windows machines, your Macs, your Linux boxes. And again, that tool is focused on just primarily the things that are out there that are known. It's typically not very dynamic in its ability. It recognizes things that it has been taught. So again, managed detection and response is not an EDR tool, and it is not a risk tool. In a lot of cases, it can be implemented along with those in order to be an overall security posture.
You know, I really like that you broke out MDR into 3 different words, because if I'm deploying a managed detection response solution, I want to break it down. I want the management not only to be what is actively happening with my infrastructure, I want the setup of it. I want it to make sure that it's deployed in a way that it understands everything within my infrastructure, that nothing is hidden from my solution. That is a managed solution. That's what I want. I want a serious amount of deployment so that everything is covered. And then I want eyes on that glass so that it is reported to me. And that's the detection piece. I want that detection 24/7. I don't want it there ever be a time that I'm not aware of what's happening within my infrastructure. So I need those security professionals looking at what's going on. And then I need a response. I need something that's going to notify me when there's something that's detected. And if I have the capability, and I would insist on this capability, the ability to isolate that device and take it offline so it's no longer threatening to my enterprise. That's a good managed detection and response. And when you talk about EDR, EDR should be a part of it. You should have network detection and response throughout as the data moves throughout your network, and you should have something that looks at your endpoint and provides you understanding of what's happening at that endpoint. And with that agent is capable, and we know that the article of managed detection response does have this capability, it can isolate that device and remove it so that my IT guys who are home and resting and sleeping and getting so that they can come back to work the next morning, they're not getting up at 3 a.m. and addressing this. It's already been addressed for them. And when they come to work, they get the understanding about what happened and what they need to do next, what their next steps are. That's managed detection and response. That's what I would insist on.
Yeah, containment is a big piece of it. You know, when I can limit that blast zone and the spread of whether that malware, a ransomware issue, it really does limit its impact on my environment. And being able to see how it got in, leveraging all those logs, looking at them in a correlated way, and then doing the backtracking to be able to prevent that from happening again, whether that's user education, changing the construction or the design of your perimeter, all those things, those are relevant. And on top of that, you know, I said it earlier about you know, the limitless amount of information and all of it being powerful. We can't have a tool, especially a managed detection and response tool, that is limited to specific parts of my infrastructure. You know, if my managed detection and response tool is only looking at my firewall, only looking at my network, and only looking at my Windows boxes, then it's not seeing everything. If it's only looking on-prem, it's not including my cloud or my remote assets, then it's not a complete and it's not a full MDR solution. So, you know, a lot of the tools that get deployed, a lot of the assets that get deployed on a network nowadays are dumb devices. We said earlier about IoT devices, printers, scanners, you know, the list goes on and on, medical devices, cash machines, ATMs, all of those are pieces and parts, and they're still computers. Now, they don't run agents, but they still need to be monitored, and there are still vulnerability sets that apply to those. And we need to be able to see that information and react to it just like we would our Windows boxes, our Macs, and our Linux boxes as well.
Yeah, you're talking about broad visibility and the effort of having physical devices and having cloud devices. You need to have that. The MDR program has to be able to cross those lines and be able to bring that information into for review so that it's effective. If I have a toaster and it has an Ethernet port, I want it to tell me my bread's burning. I want to know everything that's happening in my infrastructure, and I think you nailed it with the ideology behind that.
And we mentioned earlier, real quickly, on the spear phishing side of the coin, there are nefarious actors that watch, excuse me, the G Suite platform as well as Office 365. And when they see new domains coming up, they know that that's a great opportunity for them to jump in the middle and send phishing emails to folks saying, hey, we need to update your password. Can you confirm your username, your existing username and email address for us? They'll do a little bit of research on LinkedIn to find out which one of those folks is working in purchasing and things of that nature. We've even seen attacks where folks have a dual factor authentication tool in place, but in that transition between on-prem and Office 365, there's enough of disparity and confusion in their user base that they can force an email to go through because the IT staff thinks that, the purchasing director just forgot his credentials, so they disable dual factor authentication for 5 minutes so that he can do it. And that gives that nefarious actor enough time to pretend like he's the purchasing guy and tell the rest of the purchasing department to pay this invoice to some local place. So there's all kinds of ways to get around those things, and we need to be able to have that visibility.
Now, one other thing that I think that we've talked about before, but if they have MDR, do they need managed perimeter? Scott?
So managed perimeter is the effort of actually managing the firewall or managing the device on the edge so that it has the capability of locking down a port or blocking an IP address that may be determined as threatening. That's different. A managed detection response is the element of tracking the data, the traffic as it moves throughout the enterprise, whether it's coming from endpoint to server or server to firewall. That movement, that understanding is taking place. But when you talk about managed perimeter, you're talking about the actual controlling the firewall, and that's a little different than what managed detection response delivers.
Okay, got it, got it. So at what point does somebody consider bringing managed detection and response into their IT security strategy? There's tons of different tools out there. At what point should they think about bringing that in? Tim?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it. In my opinion, from an overall security aspect, managed detection and response should be probably the first security tool you implement. I think in most cases, organizations typically roll out something like an antivirus solution or something like that. And that's not a bad plan either. But managed detection and response, we've said it multiple times, but I'll reiterate, it is the culmination of the information set. The other part of it would be the break point. When you get to a point where you don't have the ability individually to go out to your Active Directory, go out to your Office 365, go out to your firewall, your network switch, and all the rest of those pieces and parts, and manually review those logs individually and do the research required in order to detect indicators of compromise, that's probably a good time to bring in a managed detection and response tool, because now at least then I'm correlating the data. I'm bringing it into one location, and now I can start reading through it. It still is a whole lot of work. It's still creating a large amount of time suck when you come to that, but it's a requirement. The third indicator for me for bringing managed detection response is when you break outside of the brick walls, right? When I'm no longer just an on-prem organization, when I start leveraging cloud, or I have a remote workforce, which COVID obviously it brought that to bear for pretty much everybody. But even if before then, if I had a remote sales force or something like that, if I don't have one constant view of the information and I have multiple facets of where that information is moving and who's moving it, then I need an MDR solution again to bring that all together into one correlated location. So now it's actionable data and I can look at it in a cohesive security posture.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tim. Compliance is probably a motivation behind it as well. Compliance probably is insisting on the fact that you're doing event log review more than just when an incident happens. They want a more steady review of that. A lot of the compliances out there, like HIPAA, and some of the FDIC, FFIEC, certainly the higher level federal or government associated contract compliances that can drive those requirements, DFARS and ITAR, insist on a regular, recurring, daily review of what's happening in your logging for your systems. And even if you don't have a compliance hanging over your head, if you're just modeling your security behind a framework, and you should designate a framework that fits the responsibility of your industry and the responsibility of the organization and build that framework. There is format within that framework to form a understanding of what's happening in your log and log management. So you don't even have to have a compliance over your head. If you're properly structuring your security behind a framework, ISO 27001, any of the NIST standards, then it's going to insist on that managed solution.
Yeah, and I would add very quickly, if you're an organization right now that doesn't have a compliance requirement, it's coming. Most of the relationships that we have, both with our suppliers and our vendors, most of those have compliance themselves, and those compliance elements extend into their relationships from a business side of the coin. So to Scott's point, if you're implementing ISO 27001, NIST, CIS, anything like that, you're going to be ahead of that game, and you're going to be doing things that are going to allow you to check that box when that relationship requirement comes up. So it's a great plan, and another good driver for when to put MDR in.
And I got a great live question for you two. How would an MDR solution augment an existing internal security team with CISO?
A good MDR solution would have the capability of not only reporting to a supporting vendor like an MSP like NetGain is, but also be able to work directly with your IT team. So if you have an internal IT source, if you have an IT team that's already built around being able to model that, it should work hand in hand with that. It should be reported to it. It should be able to respond to it. When they make a request for reporting, or they make a request that's aligned with a change that's necessary to institute a block or some level of threat remediation, they should be able to work together. So I do not think that having an on-prem or a workforce that's already designed to provide that security control is a deterrent to promoting and installing an MDR solution.
Yeah, a couple of things I would add to that. The first of which is, the augmentation, or I would even say the strengthening of what you've already got implemented is certainly what an MDR tool should do. You should feel more confident and more capable with an appropriate MDR solution in place, because now I've taken all these disparate pieces of my security posture and I've brought them into a centralized location for both monitoring, review, false positive elimination, and research, as well as remediation steps. And this really does help. Now, it is a daunting task, but it really does help. And with the augmentation of an existing security staff on-prem, the reality is that I feel really a lot of compassion for existing security folks that work for organizations. And what I mean by that is what's expected out of them and what their job really is supposed to be, which is typical in IT type functions, right? It isn't always in line. And what I mean by that is a lot of folks that look at a solution like Arctic Wolf that have a security team, they're like, well, now I can get rid of my security team. And that's certainly not what we're trying to do. What we're really trying to do is allow that security team to do what they were intended to do, which is to be the business extender from a security perspective. Give that security professional the ability to augment your business, to drive those relationships with some of your compliance requirements and your vendors and your suppliers. Allow them to extend the business in appropriate ways, to implement security into what you do on a day-to-day basis, whether that's implementing software, leveraging the cloud, doing a remote sales force. The list goes on and on. Those are all the pieces and parts that a security professional is really there to do. That day-to-day minutia, that's just sucking their time. That's just really overwhelming them with things that doesn't allow them to do those previous things that I was just speaking of. So bringing in an MDR solution like an Arctic Wolf augments, doesn't replace, it augments. Now, we certainly have customers that don't have security staff at all, and we fill that void. But for those that have security staff, now we can offload that minutia and we can let them get back to the business of doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's another tool in their tool belt to help them be successful.
Awesome. So before we move on, I want to do quickly top benefits of MDR. Tim, you get one, and then Scott, you get one. What's your top benefit?
Information correlation.
Scott, what about you?
Rapid response.
Cool.
Those
Wonderful.
two fit together.
Great. Well, now let's switch over to what information the tool kind of looks at, and what information, once an organization decides they want to move forward with MDR, what they get. Scott, can you walk us through this a little bit?
Sure. And so we start with what we're going to be achieving information from. And so obviously I want all of my network under watch. I want my firewall information to be processed through this assist logs dropped into the solution. I want my IDS or my IPS. This is your detection and prevention solutions that are on your perimeter. I want that information being able to flow through this understanding so that I've got professionals that are reviewing what's happening at those devices. I want my switching to be able to feed into this. I want my information from my network standpoint to be completely covered. Now we're talking about our physical controls, so we need to include our endpoint visibility. So I want agents installed on my endpoint so if they leave my perimeter, they actually are working remotely, and that's a condition that's probably very prevalent right now in the COVID-19 era. In which I want to be able to continually track what's happening on those devices. And I want the capability of being able to isolate those devices. That agent would give us that capability. If I'm moving to the cloud, if I'm actually taking my data outside of my perimeter, I'm now transitioning to Office 365, or I'm storing servers up in AWS's platform or Azure's platform. I want to keep eyes on it. I want to have this tool being able to be capable of pulling and ingesting that information as well to keep me in the know with what's happening in my data that's outside of my perimeter. So all those controls, all those tool sets need to be included in what a good MDR process is.
Very simple, very easy. The question, I'm sorry, the comment that we made earlier truly needs to be the foundation of that visibility, which is information is power. And again, I'll point out that the truth is it's a lot of information. There's literally tons of it, but all of it is valuable. And that value isn't just about detecting the bad things. It's also about detecting, configuration deviations. It's also about detecting, perimeter adjustments. It's also about knowledge of what's going on in places that you don't typically look, right? When we look at a customer as they're being onboarded into Arctic Wolf world, one of the things that we do is we build a good traffic pattern. And all of that log information can contribute to that, or will contribute to that. So once an MDR platform has been implemented, now you can start building this is what I should see type picture, right? And when you leverage all those different logs and look in them in a correlated way, it starts to limit the amount of time it takes to recognize a threat as I get better and better about understanding what normal traffic should look like. So all of that tool visibility coming together allows me to build that proper traffic view. And once I have that, now my ability to very quickly eliminate false positives, as well as very quickly be able to detect indicators of compromise, exponentially reduces that time to detection. So those are things that really help a lot from that visibility side of the coin.
Totally agree. And I don't want there to be limits in the information that it can take in, right? I don't want there to be limits on the log aggregation that's happening on my MDR solution. I want it to be able to ingest anything and everything that I push through it so that I'm more aware about what's happening on it. And if there are limits associated with that, I need to know that. And that's one of the great things about the Arctic Wolf solution is there's absolutely zero limit to the amount of logging information that you can pipe through the solution, which is super important. And then I want to be able to have it searchable. I want it to be able to provide me information forensically if I have a breach. If something does happen within my infrastructure, I need to know about it. I need identification of root cause. I need to be able to identify where the spread was, how wide the blast zone. I'm stealing your word there, Tim. I know you love the term blast zone. Uh, this is a critical functionality of the tool, right? The ability to ingest everything and the ability to report. And those are certainly the tool visibility piece of it. That's exactly what I'm looking
Yeah, and you mentioned and be able to report, which takes us very nicely to our next portion here. I want to look at some of those reports that people should expect to receive from their MDR provider and what kind of information it's giving them. Tim, you want to start us off here?
Definitely. There's nothing that people like better than to see what they've put together actually resulting in progress, right? Your investment should be pretty easily understood based on the reporting that you've received. Now, the truth is that security scores in the security industry can sometimes seem a little bit arbitrary, but there are industry standards for developing security scores. So your MDR platform should follow some of those standards. They'll probably have slight deviations, which is totally fine, but there should be standards to help you, do research and recognize whether you're where the rest of your vertical or your industry is actually fitting with respect to an overall security posture. So that security review, whether that be a weekly, a monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, should be something very easily accessed. It should be dynamic in that you can include or remove pieces and parts of it to make it more relevant to you and the information you're trying to see. But it should be pretty easily understood. You shouldn't have to do a bunch of research and deep dives into the security sphere to be able to translate it into what it really is. It should also very easily show you, where you're at with respect to reactions. Sometimes, in most cases, MDR tools, the security score that you have is most likely impacted the largest amount by how quickly you respond to tickets that are created. So those can indicate a few different things. It could be your escalation path isn't properly designed. You don't have the right people contacted in the right ways. Maybe you have a different site design, things of that nature that can impact how quickly these tickets that are created are actually remediated. So you need to be able to see the timeline of not only when those tickets were created, but also when they were closed. And that helps you to even make changes to the way your escalation path is designed. Your MDR platform should also offer the ability to have a dynamic escalation path. So this will indicate some of that information as well. And then last and certainly not least is the reality of the external vulnerability stuff, right? So sometimes that external vulnerability piece can be a little bit vague. And as part of an MDR platform, external vulnerability should be part of that. Now, we're talking about vulnerability. We're not talking about risk. So there's a different component to a risk-based report. And you can certainly get that by leveraging a risk tool, which Arctic Wolf also provides. But from an MDR perspective, we're going to be looking at things that we're seeing hit your perimeter that Scott mentioned earlier through your firewall, your IDS and IPS platforms. We're also going to see those traffic patterns and things of that nature to your websites, and even dark web and gray web scanning, things of that nature that can be indicators of compromise. So all of those pieces and parts should be dynamic in that you can create them anytime you want yourself, or you can ask your MDR provider to provide them on an unlimited basis. They can also be targeted to specific people in your organization. If you just want it to go to the board in a specific format, or the C-level team management, whatever, you should be able to do those as well if needed.
Yeah, and Tim, if I'm running the business and I'm leveraging MDR, I need my reports to be flexible, right? I need my executive team to be able to receive summary reports that indicate the wellness of my infrastructure or how well this particular tool is functioning. But I also needed to be able to deliver detailed reports to my IT team so that they can execute remediation based on findings. And I also need to supply reporting to my auditors that will achieve the understanding that they need to have, that will process that we are practicing what we are intending, or what we say that we are practicing. I want it to be flexible. I want it to show what I've done recently in the last 30 days. I want it to show what I've done in the last 90 days so that I can show a point of improvement in my security posturing. And hopefully that report would represent that. Open and closed tickets are certainly necessary to find out how functional we are being in our efforts of remediation. So all of those are important. It has to be a flexible tool. I would insist on that if I was deploying MDR, and I think you've example what is necessary in a good reporting system.
Yeah, wonderful. I want to quickly transition us over into walking us through what happens when a compromise is detected. Scott, can you walk us through this?
If the tool is working as it's deposited or as it's deployed within the infrastructure correctly, that the understanding is that it can recognize threat. And so when it recognizes that that compromise, the indicator of compromise, that IOC thing, then it actually can execute something towards it. That can be a notification that's delivered directly to the IT team so that they can perform an immediate remediation. But if they're not available, I need it to be more than that. I need it to be able to remove that device from being effective to the rest of my infrastructure. So what it can do is, utilizing the agent that's deployed on it, it can actually take it offline to where only the MDR solution and the security professionals have access to the information, but it's no longer threatening to the rest of my infrastructure. Then a notification can be delivered to the IT team to work on the effort of whatever the remediation need is in the morning when they come into work, and effectively process that remediation. That's the goal behind it. Once the remediation is recognized, once it's been removed as the threat from the device, then it can automatically be reintroduced back into the network through that agent control. And so that compromise or that level of containment is reversed and it's now back online. That's the flow of it. Tim, what do you got?
Yeah, I would simply add the fact that containment is a powerful element, but containment also needs to be restricted. And what I mean by that is containment needs to be implemented by the MDR solution, not by your staff. There's different ways that your IT team can limit access, disabling accounts, disjoining machines from Active Directory. The list literally goes on and on. But the containment side of it can be very detrimental, if you have a disgruntled employee that decides he wants to contain the entire asset base on his way out the door. So containment needs to be managed by the managed detection and response solution, and not by your IT team. It's not necessarily because people don't believe that the end users have the ability to do the containment. It's that it's a different tool. So when we think about it in terms of security, containment is, and I'll use my word again, containment is about limiting that blast zone or that further infection or rot from spreading across your network. If we're disabling a machine because a user has been extricated from the organization, or a laptop has been lost or something like that, that's a NOC function. That's a network operations center function. That's not a security operations center function. And that's something else that kind of spreads a little bit in today's world with respect to security and IT, is, a lot of times people think security is going to be an augmentation to your existing NOC platform when they truly need to be separate.
Yeah. And if I'm deploying this MDR solution, I don't want my containment option to be a light switch. I want it to be flexible, right? I want to be able to sit there and say, okay, just my workstations I want under a containment system. I don't want my servers under containment. I need that flexibility. I would insist on that on an MDR deployment. I want to know if there's an infection, this is the time I want notification to occur. That notification can occur through a phone call. That notification can occur through a email, an SMS message, however you want to structure it. And then if containment becomes the methodology of isolating that threat, then that's okay, as long as it's done at the workstations. Don't lock down my servers without my understanding.
Yep, wonderful. Okay. Now, before we jump over to questions, which we do have a few, I want to flip it to the question that's probably on everybody's mind, price. So I suspect it's going to be difficult to pinpoint an exact cost for anyone because it's going to vary on these different pieces, but we can at least give everybody kind of an understanding of how MDR is priced. Tim, you want to take it from the top?
Sure. The easy part is also the most difficult part. Typically, an MDR solution is based on your assets, so your servers, and then your users. Now, the reality is that the user side of it is a little bit vague. And what I mean by that is an organization may have, say, a manufacturing site or something like that, may have a large contingent of their staff that never logs into a computer, never uses email. They're simply there working on the line doing their job. Those folks shouldn't count towards your user count for an MDR platform. When you're thinking about a user count with a managed detection and response solution, it should be those folks that contribute to your threat surface, right? So the folks that are sending and receiving email on the internet all day long, doing those kind of critical functions. Now, the truth is that you may have some folks that are maybe the management tier or the supervisory tier on the floor that maybe they log into email once or twice a day, do a little bit of web surfing, not very much. An MDR platform typically will account for those kind of people in some kind of a metric, right? Maybe a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 type metric. So what it boils down to is a user is a user. So, if that user has a desktop, they're sending, receiving emails, they're interacting with the internet, doing those kind of things. We call those in the Arctic Wolf world knowledge users. They contribute to your actual threat surface. If they are doing it via their laptop, via their tablet, via their phone, they're still just one user. They're not 4 users. So you shouldn't be spending additional monies on a user that is using different forms of communication. When we talk about servers, that one's pretty simple. I know that in the virtual world, people have the impression that those shouldn't technically count. But the truth is that a server is a server is a server. Doesn't matter whether it's physical or virtual, or if it's in the cloud. All of those count as servers, and they need to be reviewed as such. So the reality is that you have to be cautious about how you're actually laying out your pricing or your recognition of pricing to recognize the fact that you're spending money in the places that need to be spent. When we talk about sensors, the truth is that typically a sensor for an MDR platform is installed on the trusted side of a firewall, and they're at each one of the site's egress points. And that's so that we can collect all that information in flow, right? They call that north-south traffic. And that allows us to get better visibility. Typically, there's a cost associated with those sensors, but it's not exorbitant. Normally, they should be pretty cost effective. And then last, and certainly not least, is log retention and log search. Log retention should have a fixed price. There shouldn't be a variable price associated with it. So the amount of log retention required by your compliance requirements is how the contract should be structured, and that should be the price that you pay all the time. Log search may or may not be an option. Sometimes folks provide MDR solutions that don't provide log search. Arctic Wolf does, and our log search is an option. So you don't have to have it, but it's there if you want it as an option.
Man, I really like the way this is laid out. The idea that you're going to price this based on my user count and not my device count is an enormous uplift, because now I don't have to worry about this user having a workstation, a laptop, a tablet, a phone. It's all covered. It's per user. I love that idea. The server count. Physical servers, absolutely. Virtual servers, no problem. But I want to host servers. I want the things that are hosting my virtual platforms to also be included in this watch, and they are. And that's an enormous uptick as too. Sensor deployment, yeah, I don't want to put a stripe on my network, right? I don't want to have to worry about information has to parse from a branch location to my main location to get that understanding. So being able to deploy sensors at those locations to help improve that network performance, to help minimize the amount of network impact that this traffic may provide, is certainly an uplift as well. And log retention, I can't stress that enough in the element of compliance, the necessity of maintaining and keeping those logs. I know that some area of log retention, I believe like 90 days is provided automatically, but if you need those extended amounts of coverage, a 1-year level of log retention, that's something that needs to be flexible to provide. And I know that's provided in the Arctic Wolf solutions. That's a plus.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I hope that gave everybody sort of an idea there. Now I do want to flip it over and give time for questions. And while we do that, I'm going to throw up another polling question. We want to know how we can help you all meet your goals. So please fill that out if we can help you and we can continue the conversation. Would love to do that with you. Don't forget that we do encourage questions. If there's something that wasn't covered that you wanted to see covered during this time, submit that in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. I do have a couple I want to go back to that was submitted during the live portion. What is the correlation between cloud computing and information hacking, ransomware, or any other attack? Tim, you want to take that or start us?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that I would address that. The first of which is just with a nice little moniker that we see as we implement new customers in the Arctic Wolf world. 70% of those new users, you saw the statistic earlier in one of the slides, have some kind of an element that's already in play on their infrastructure. Out of that 70%, 43% of them have something to do with a cloud implementation. So when we think about it, the problem is, in most cases, folks feel like that security is also something that they purchase when they get or they start to leverage the cloud as an asset. And the truth is that the cloud doesn't actually provide additional security for you. They still expect you to do the same security practice and procedures that you would do on-prem. At the same time, though, there are different ways to look at it. And what I mean by that is some of the biggest problems in the cloud are the default settings. So if you're building an S3 bucket in Amazon, for instance, if you're doing a public S3 bucket, the word public is a very important aspect of that. And what I mean by that is that as soon as you buy it and build it, it's open to the public. You have to disable that. So you need a cloud tool to be able, from a security perspective, to say, check and balance wise, hey, this is the way that needs to be. The second part of it is when I'm building cloud assets, they're very easy and very quick to build. But the problem is sometimes we deviate from some kind of a configuration that we need. And in that case, what you want to be cautious of is making sure a security tool not only tells you about bad things that are happening, but also tells you about configuration that deviates from your standards.
Perfect. And the last question that we have time for, after getting training, how much additional schooling is still required to keep up with evolving risks? Scott?
Well, that's a really good question because the threat landscape is constantly changing. So does your understandings. Your education has to be continual and consistent. I don't think there's ever a point in time that you can stop learning about threat and what's required in the element of protection and remediation. Having the understanding, having the professionals involved in your solution that are constantly up to date with the latest threats is certainly beneficial to the platform. I think it's a necessity. I just don't think that once you have your initial training, that there's ever going to be a point in time that you cannot continually stop learning about what's going on out there. But as far as the education of the platform, how the platform works, is pretty intuitive. Once you get your initial stand up and initial training, and you kind of get the keys to start driving, it becomes very apparent very easily about how to keep control of what's going on within your organization.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Scott. If you do have any other questions on the topic, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. The contact information is on the screen. Thank you, Tim and Scott, for your insights. And thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar on Managed Detection and Response. Please enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye now.